Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good. It's so good to see you. Tell me your name again. I'm so sorry.
Oh, Toya.
Toya. Okay, Toya. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in. I'm really glad you brought your notes today. So I just want to reframe the purpose of our meeting together. Okay. So we're gonna meet. We're gonna talk about that observation that I did, and remember, like, we'll take down a bunch of notes on things that you noted, things that you love, things that you want to improve. But we're gonna leave here with only one thing for you to work on today. So really just stay focused. You know, we might mention stuff, we might have great conversations, but this shouldn't feel overwhelming at the end, okay? All right? I'm really excited for this. So just loved being in your classroom. So let's start first, and I want you to talk to me about what you wanted students to learn while I was in your classroom. What was kind of the goal?
Well, the students needed to realize the differences between using can't and must, with them being the extremes, and then the words that would fall in between, like could or might or may, and be able to understand what that meant in the sentence, and then be able to like use it when they're speaking.
Great, so let's get that one down first, because I don't want to lose it before I ask the next question. So you can take your notes too. So understand, I'm sorry, go back to that. You wanted them to understand what?
The words can't and must.
Okay, understand can't and must.
And then
what's the next one?
May, could, and might.
Okay. And after understand, you gave me another verb. What was that verb?
And use it.
Use it. Okay, let's make sure we take note of that, because that'll help us in the next one. Okay, so understand and use. Tell me more about understand those words. What does that mean to you, or what might it look like if a student can understand those words?
So if it was used in a sentence,
okay,
and there were sentences, if that meant that it was going to happen all the time, or if it was never going to happen, or it could or might happen.
Yeah. Great. So kind of like the example that you were doing in there, where students had to pick the correct word.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I'm going to push you on this one a little bit, okay? I want you to think back to our Bloom's training. Other than understand, what's another verb that means like when students can pick the correct word?
Identify?
Identify, yeah. Let's put that one in that place, okay? Yeah, identify. Great. Okay, so they have to be able to identify those words and then use the words. That sounds great. That definitely looks like what I saw while I was in your classroom. Were there any things on the periphery that you were also trying to get your students to do or work on during that?
Well, I had them assigning values to it that kind of gave like a number value to how often it would happen.
Okay. Was that part of a new learning or an engagement technique?
It was a way for me to kind of see if they knew what it meant at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's save that for the second conversation.
Okay.
Because I do think that I do want to talk about that. I really love some pieces of that.
Okay.
But just in the new learning, understand, use, and then anything else in your standards for language acquisition that you are also trying to get them to do. And it's okay if there isn't. I just want to make sure we have it all down on paper.
No, I don't.
No? Okay, perfect. That sounds great. If you think of one, don't worry, we can always come back to it and add it to our list. So those are great. So let's move on to that second piece, and let's talk about the assessment aspect of that lesson. So how did you know that your individual students were meeting? Let's talk about understand first. Your understand or identify. How do you know that all your students can identify these words?
I had them up on the board. We wrote them. I told them that was part of the objective. Was these are the words we're going to be using. And then when I gave them sentences, they picked the words out of the sentence. And then when we went further, well, that would have maybe been used. We went further. I said a sentence and had a blank in there, and then they had to fill it out. But I guess kind of in the identify, understand was that number value that I said before. Like they had to apply. Must would be 100 times, and a can't would be never. So 0.
Absolutely. So I want to give you just a little piece of low inference data here, and then let's kind of reflect on that. So you asked at one point, I wrote down, she might be able to go to the store, and then I think students were supposed to identify if that was the correct word. When you did that, 2 out of your 6 students gave you an immediate answer, and then we moved on. So talk to me a little bit about how you know that the other 4 students also have that answer.
Well, at that time, if the 2 answered, then the rest of them got the correct answer,
Yeah.
and I'd ask again in a different example, hoping that I get more
Yeah.
answers out of there.
Absolutely, definitely. So I think if we kind of go back when we were talking originally about checking for understanding in the classroom, you don't have to do it all the time where we're checking all of the students. But I think what my low inference data is telling me is we had that one time we had 2 out of 6 students answer. You asked the next question, and one of those students was the same student, and then we picked up one other student. So if you were to go through that whole class and you didn't gather everybody's data, did you have a second way of gathering data on that understand objective?
On that day, no, it was just the
Yeah.
open group discussion.
Perfect. Let's jot that down for now. I don't know if it's going to be something that we want to talk about in the 4th question, but I do think it's good for us to remember as we keep going on that our check for understanding, it was hitting about 50% of our students today, which is a great improvement from where we were previously, but I just want to take note of that going forward. Awesome. All right, so earlier you wanted to talk about the use verb, so tell me more about that part of your lesson.
Yeah, so I had sentences that I came up with, and then I just left a blank in it, and then they had to decide which of those words would best fit that scenario.
Yeah, absolutely, great. And I know that you've been working on your student engagement, and I saw that more students were sharing answers during that portion, and so I think that that's really great. So now we're in talking about how many students were able to use the correct words. So tell me how you assessed that piece. Going back again to individually, were you able to individually assess that, or was that a similar where you only got certain members of the class?
It was done similarly. We
Okay.
had open discussion, and they
Yeah.
answered. If they knew, they said the answer.
Great, perfect. Okay. Well, I don't think we have to take note of that again because we already have that. Was there anything else that you were assessing or reassessing during class today? Any of your previously taught standards or anything that you had retaught that you were keeping an eye out for?
No, we had introduced those words before, but not with moving on and using them or identifying just the straight words. So, no, I guess not.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I didn't see anything else in there, but I always like to check because sometimes you guys are doing things before I come in or after I come in, and I want to make sure that I have all those noted. Well, you know this is one of my favorite questions to ask, and there are so many great things that you're doing all the time in your classroom. But remember, the purpose of us talking about this is so you know the things that we want you to continue doing in your classroom day after day because you're so great at them. So give them to me. Name some things, as many as you can. What did you do in your lesson today that contributed to student learning?
Well, I prepared all the sentences so that they were words that we had previously gone over so that the students had learned those.
Good. Pause and write that down. I don't want us to lose that. You were well prepared today. You did a really great job with that. Okay, keep going.
We've done word acquisition, so those were the next ones on there. So it was preparing them for the next list.
Oh, yep.
I don't know what that is right now.
What else?
It applied to the standard that we have.
Great,
I can
yeah.
get you that standard. I have it written down in my file. And then I had figured out the rating scale for the words so that the students that, are maybe more comfortable with some straight numbers that applied those to the words.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a new form of engagement for you that you were trying out.
Yes.
And I really thought it's really exciting to see you continue to be innovative in your classroom. And that's what I think that was. You're not always going to be able to come up with a rating scale, but that piece was innovative teaching. And you did a really great job on that. So I want to put 2 stars next to innovative for you because that was excellent. And I would love to see you continue to be innovative in your classroom. So good work. I want to add one more thing to your list of things that you did well. That new seating arrangement that you have in that half circle where everyone can see you, great job on that. That also, I think, is very effective in your classroom.
Yes, it helps when I can see everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Good work. Okay, So last question, and we ended up actually not having a ton of things written down, but maybe there's some other things throughout our lesson. We can't teach this lesson again. You won't teach it again. But we always are learning things that we can take forward. So talk to me about what you would do differently, and really in vein of what we're going to do differently next time.
I guess I need the students engaged more and specifically in a way that lets me know what they're learning, that they've all hit the objective, the learning objective for that day. So a little more individualized instead of just the open, what I was calling dialogue, but it was just a couple of students answering, I guess.
All right, so talk to me about this then. I just want to make sure we have a clear purpose behind it.
Mhm.
Because why would you want to do that? What are you going to gain as the teacher if you put that into effect?
Well, I need to know what they've gotten from that lesson
Yeah.
before I can move on to the next lesson, because if they don't really know these words, it's gonna be much more difficult when we're applying them to further studies into this language.
Awesome, great, yeah, I think that would be great. How many times do you want to try and do that whole group check for understanding? Like, what seems like a reasonable number for next time?
I guess a whole group, if I'm gonna then go into individual, maybe just a couple?
You wanna try 2 or 3 for the next time I come in and we can see how those go?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, let's jot that one down, 2 or 3. And how are you gonna check the whole group instead of just a couple of folks?
Maybe I need to have them answering not verbally, because then the other students know maybe they
Yeah.
need to write something down. They could have something they hold up, or
Yeah.
with our seating arrangement in the small class size, I guess I could just have it in front of them because I'd be able to see all of them.
Yeah, absolutely, you could do that. Do you have whiteboards in your room?
Yes, I do.
Is that something you feel comfortable
Yeah,
with? Because we
yeah.
can do that way? Okay. So let's do maybe some whiteboards, 2 to 3 check for understandings. Do you feel comfortable writing these checks for understanding, or would you like some assistance in putting these into your lesson plan ahead of time?
What kind of assistance can you offer?
I mean, we could sit down and go over your lesson plan, and we could just plan the areas where you might want to ask questions that everyone needs to answer.
No, I think I can put it in there.
Okay, perfect. Well, let's put a date on the calendar then for me to come back in and check for this.
Okay.
And see.
Okay. That deserves a round of applause.